Welcome to Burnt or Buttered, the quick movie review podcast,
where we will let you know if you should spend your time to go see the movie or if it's better to just stay at home and watch Love is Blind season 48.
Don't even get me started. Michael and Amanda, forget about it.
Madison?
These are also names.
Well, let's get into this one. This week we saw The Monkey.
The Monkey.
The coroner said it was an accident, but it was no accident. It was a monkey.
Based on a Stephen King short story, this is brought to you by the same people who brought you Long Legs.
And if you like long legs, you're kind of a little bit weird.
Which is good. Which, good is also part of the director's name, Osgood Perkins. And it's starring Theo James twice because he plays twins.
Hello, brother.
Bill.
The monkey that likes killing our family. It's back. It must be vanquished.
Why don't you vanquish it, huh, Bill?
So it follows Theo James from a kid into adulthood where they have a generational curse, the monkey, which is just a toy monkey that...
It's not a toy. Don't call it that ever.
that plays the drums and brings on death to the world around these boys.
And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of death.
We have been chosen to witness its power over life and death in its most devious ways.
The toy monkey?
It's evil. It's basically the devil.
Everybody dies. And that's life.
This is a horror comedy, or a comedy of horrors, if you will. Mm-hmm. Stetson's not a big horror film fan. I am. I enjoy them. So we may have different takes on this.
Most of the time, horror just gets a little bit outrageous to me. And I get that's part of the genre, but sometimes I just want to have a story. You know?
Sometimes I just want to be outraged.
Well, this movie is an interesting movie. We will get into Behind the Butter and let you know what we thought about it. Just so you know, Behind the Butter, we are going to give all the spoilers away. This movie just came out, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers at this point, go ahead and skip ahead to our Final Pop, where we will give you our rating on this movie and without any spoilers. So you can decide from there how you feel. But if you want to dive in deep with us in this movie, stay tuned.
And with that, let's get into Behind the Butter. So, where should we start on this one? I guess one of the things that I found interesting about this movie was it's all told from the viewpoint of Theo James, Hal, one of the twin brothers. And as a kid, I started noticing every character in this movie talks really weird. Like, they're all basically caricatures of, like... They react how you would expect them to react in like a cartoon show or something, you know. They call the babysitter Annie. Like, they don't just call her Annie. This is babysitter Annie. Mm-hmm. Weird stuff like that. And so I started thinking to myself, maybe it's because it's told from Hal's viewpoint, and he was a kid when this was happening. So he oversimplifies everything, or he gives people dialogue for exposition so that he doesn't have to show, or there's not a whole lot of character development other than the exposition.
Yeah, and like to that idea, as you're talking, it made me think of that this kid has crazy trauma from his childhood. And with that, like, he is a narrator. You know, he is the only person living at the, to tell this story at the end of the movie. And with that, he probably, just like anybody, wants to paint himself in the most beneficial light that there is. You know, he's going to give himself all the grace and make himself look probably a lot better than he actually is.
Other than when he shows us, him slamming his brother's head with a bowling ball, and telling us outright, I wish that my brother was dead. I thought about killing him multiple times.
Which, if his brother is half as bad as he is portrayed, it's super understandable. Bill is an interesting character in this movie in the way that he is the personified horrible brother that you could ever think of. Like, everything bad that you could think of a brother being, Bill is that. And you kind of wonder why. Like, is it, I know they both were traumatized by their dad leaving and they were super upset about that, and their mom had a huge influence on their life, but Bill was always set on being better than Hal, but also there has to be something more to Bill that made him just so bad. If maybe, or he's just naturally just a bad person, an evil person. But
yeah, it almost seemed like, Hal talks about in the womb, Bill eating half of his placenta or whatever, and that's why Bill's the bigger, older brother. He's 3 minutes older. They're twin brothers, but he's clearly the superior brother. He doesn't have to wear glasses.
But he's also super dumb. Just outrageously dumb. And like, even dumb to the point where his mom dies and he's at the funeral and he's looking at his mom like doing a Lion King, wake up, just wake up, mom, just wake up. And it's just like, this kid has to be smart enough to know that like his mom's dead, his mom's not waking up. They're like 15, they seem like they're like 12.
Yeah,
12,
I think they're
13,
around
14,
12.
Around that age. It's just like, come on. Like,
At the same time, I did feel like that was a pretty powerful scene, just to show like how much trouble Bill has accepting things, and how he really only views it from his own lens. Like, he doesn't take the time to look at how does this affect other people,
Yeah, definitely a giant narcissist in that way, where I guess I really didn't think about it that way, where it's more so he doesn't believe something until it's just in his face so much that he can't deny it.
Yeah.
Like, he just does not want to acknowledge like the reality of what is happening, maybe. And
if I had to sit through one more funeral where that preacher was speaking, my goodness, I don't think I could do it. I would tell him to shut up too.
Well, and I want to know the middle years in between the 12-year-old, Bill and Hal, to the 25 years later. So they're probably like 35 at that point or something like
Somewhere around there.
At least 30 something years old.
Yeah.
It seemed like nothing happened in Bill's life from that time that he found the key in the tunnel to the time where he recreates his funeral tuxedo or his funeral suit to try and entice the monkey to come back. It's just like he was stuck in like some sort of nothingness. And it's weird because you think that the rest of his teenage years, high school, going at jobs, girlfriends, whatever, would somehow influence this person, but it seemed like there was nothing. It just went from 12-year-old to 30-year-old, and it was just like that.
Yeah. And they didn't really go into anything that happened in those in-between years other than the fact that he basically said he was drifting, you know. There,
Yeah.
and it seems like Hal did too, because we look at Hal, he's 35 to 40 years old, and he's working at a convenience store, you know.
Yeah, and I think like with Hal, the thing with Hal was that he wanted to separate himself from anybody that he could hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so he was purposely like drifting, separating himself. He accidentally or purposely, you know, fell in love, had a kid, and that was kind of the one major mistake that he made in that quest. But he just wanted to be a good person, I feel like Hal wanted to rectify the idea that he killed his mom with the monkey. Yeah. And then not hurt anybody else for the rest of his life. You know, like he never turned the key ever again.
Yeah, yeah.
Where with Bill, all he wanted to do was cause pain. All he wanted to do was like do the exact opposite of what Hal was doing. And so I wonder like how that translates, because Bill, you know, when they're kids, he's super popular. He has friends everywhere. He's like popular. He's a bully. He, you know, has purpose like in this world where
He's stylish.
yeah, has this very interesting style, you know, and so that's where I feel like that was a big missing piece for me of the connection with Bill, is you felt a lot for the kids, and it was really hard to feel much of anything for the adult of Bill and Hal.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're just adults now, and it's just different. Like, and so I feel like that's where I was lost as far as like me really caring for these characters, because I did gain a fondness for them as kids. But then that just did not carry over into adulthood really at all.
Yeah, it did seem like there was a disconnect between the childhood and the adulthood characters, at least. Like they didn't seem necessarily like the same characters. But I do think I don't think that it's too much of a reach to see how Bill just went into absolute insanity from all of this trauma, you know, and from believing that his brother had killed their mom, you know, and believing that his brother wanted to kill him.
Well, I mean, even in the backstory where Bill. We unveil that Bill is the guy that is turning the key. Yeah. And it goes back in time to see Bill as a kid find the key. And then it just glosses over to where Bill's an adult. I would have loved to see like some of the heartache and the struggle that they had an opportunity to tell right there. They could have had an opportunity of showing him in like rundown hotels and like with hookers and like, you know, like a gambling or like trying to find like escape from some way, some way to like lead him to this like mansion, castle, weird house that he lives in that he's under the name of Miss Monkey, and like get us there other than I've just been searching for the monkey this whole time. Yeah. You know, give me something else there. Like even show him in and out of like insane asylums or something like that. Like where, you know, something that leads me to believe that, okay, this guy's just like super troubled other than he just got to this point somehow. You know?
Yeah. When he still was super charismatic because the realtor lady kept on talking about how into him she was, you know.
Well, how?
She was telling Hal about how much she was into his brother Bill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And then she was calling Hal like pretty and stuff like that too, but because he looked like Bill and she was into Bill.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was like the comedy aspect of this comedy horror. There was some pretty dang good parts of it, and like pretty creative, interesting ways of telling comedy inside of a horror for sure. And the tropes that were portrayed were done in such an interesting way, and it makes me almost want to watch Longlegs again to see if there's any of those same things that come up in Longlegs. Because Longlegs, I didn't feel like there was any of that. Longlegs felt way more serious than a comedy. Yeah. But I feel like this guy's style is like such a interesting dynamic where he's pulling obviously from other comedies. Yeah. So I wonder if he did that in Longlegs as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, we were talking about after the movie, there were a lot of references to like Tommy Boy and Dumb and Dumber.
Even Lion King in the funeral, like I totally thought that was a Lion King moment where he's looking at his dead dad. Wake up, just wake up.
Yeah, so maybe it's just 90s movies, and that was an interesting way to make it feel nostalgic without just making it nostalgic. Like Y2K, they just had a lot of nostalgia porn, everything was meant to remind you of the 2000s.
Sure.
And this was slightly more subtle. You still recognize the scenes, like the Tommy Boy scene at the pool, her jumping into the pool, and but
and also like National Lampoon, like that's almost the same thing.
Oh yeah,
National
same.
Lampoon,
Yeah,
like Christmas Vacation. Like that. Hot girl in the pool type thing is throughout like a few comedies like at this point. It was original in interesting ways, and the story, I do love a narrated beginning. Like there's something about that, and maybe it's just because Sandlot is one of my favorite movies of all time, where at the very beginning, it shows his dad bringing the monkey, trying to destroy it, trying to give it away, and he explains like, if that monkey starts banging a drum, something bad's gonna happen. And then it goes into Hal, or Theo James, narrating from an adult, talking about his childhood. I would have loved to see like what happened to the dad after the flamethrower incident as well, like
and why he left and where he went,
or the dad was just like them, he was just like, this, I can't risk my boys being killed by this monkey somehow, even though it seems really easy for this monkey not to kill people. Just don't freaking turn the key.
Yeah, don't turn the key.
Why was the key even turned when he brought it to the shop? That's my question. Like, why was the key turned? Who turned it?
Yeah. And if you can take the key out, why not just separate these things for good?
Just take the key and hold on to the key. Can't kill anybody.
You don't have to carry this monkey around, just the key. As long as you have the key, nobody else can turn the key.
Apparently, the monkey can ejecto Keo, though, like freaking whenever he wants.
That monkey can. The rules of this monkey were pretty vague.
Yeah. And the monkey had movements at interesting times of the movie. Like, you can see the monkey's eyes move. You can see the monkey's face change at certain points. But the monkey never really animates other than in dreams. And
at the very end, when he starts going crazy, this, like a 30-second drum solo
where he's killing like every single person in the team. Like he's just like, dead person, dead person, dead person, dead person, dead person.
Now a plane's coming down.
The skydiving wedding that like comes through the ceiling is just like, oh my god.
There was a lot of cool foreshadowing, like you just knew things were going to happen eventually. You didn't know when they were going to happen, but like the kid comes and says, hey, there's a place in town that teaches skydiving. And then he makes a joke about...
Like, and they do weddings. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you see it.
Yeah. One interesting thing, they had to have done this on purpose, but the kid looks like the dang monkey. The side profile of his kid looks like the monkey. And I don't know if that's purposeful, where it's just like, your job is to care and take care of this monkey, forever, just like your job is to care and take care of your kid. Like, you're the keeper of the monkey. Like, it's your family has this curse and kind of blessing in the way that you're protecting other people, but it's a curse that you always have to have this monkey forever. And like, eventually the dad, Hal's gonna have to pass it down to his son, where his son's gonna have to, safe keep the monkey.
Yeah. And
so I don't know if that was, what they were trying to play at with that, but
I guess you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
The monkey too is just gonna be his son going completely crazy.
Yeah.
And just going on and turning, like, because the kid freaking turned it one time.
He did turn it once.
Yeah, and it killed the skater. Was it the other? And I don't know if the director, like his dad, like left him when he was a kid, but he has a really, He has a really soft spot or a hard spot for dads ditching their kids.
Yeah. Well, and that was interesting too, because the kid, that skater kid, kept on saying that it reminded him of his dad. So I almost was wondering if the monkey targets people who don't have a dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that definitely could be the case, because he was definitely drawn to the monkey. Like, he was willing to do anything to get that monkey. And so, yeah, if it's just like a generational thing, but then if he keeps the monkey and he's a good dad to his son, what happens then?
What happens?
Some wacko comes and steals it.
It's about breaking the cycle. It ends with us.
Oh no. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much more to say about it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, let's get into the final pop.
The final pop.
Yeah, so this was a really fun movie for me. I enjoyed it a lot. I found myself laughing quite a bit at the ridiculousness of it. You know, like, a lot of it was just so over the top. You know, limbs exploding, flying blood, like just over the top gore, which sometimes is too much, sometimes it's fun. This was fun, you know. The comedy was really good. There was a lot of really suspenseful moments. I felt like I found myself holding my breath a few times, and I was like, whoa, okay, buddy, breathe. Nothing here can hurt you, you know? And so for me, it was a really fun watch. I don't think that it's, you know, the greatest horror film ever. I think Longlegs was a much better actual horror film. This was a really fun watch. So I'm going to give it, from burnt to buttered, I'm going to put it right there, 3.5.
A 3.5.
Yeah.
That's really surprising to me. I thought that you were going to rate it way higher. Coming out of the movie theater, Toast was just like, oh, that was awesome. That was so fun. That was really good.
Did I say anything different? I'm saying all those things, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's a career maker for anybody, you know, even for Osgood Perkins. Like, that was a great follow-up to Longlegs. I think he's got more.
It definitely showed, like, depth to, like, what he can do.
Yeah.
Like, Longlegs being, like, a serious horror, and this being a comedy.
And both of them hitting, you know, the right way for me.
Yeah.
So.
Sweet. Well, I think for me, I don't love horror, you know, and so naturally for me, any of these movies, like the horror genre, unless there's something super, super special about it, it's not really going to, you know,
it's not going to scratch your itch.
Yeah, it's not going to, like, really speak to me. But with this one, this had good elements to it. You know, it had, the comedy was good. The tropes coming from, you know, past comedies was good. The cinematography of it and the storytelling was really fun to watch. There, it was kind of fun to watch actors play characters that they don't normally play, you know, and see them in different lights and kind of see the range of those characters. I like that a lot. But for me, just because of the horror aspect of it, I have to give it like a 2.9. And that, with that being said, I think if I was a horror fan, this would be like a 3.5 to a 4, you know, like around there, where there was a lot more than just horror, you know, to add that on there. If this was just horror, like gore and everything else, it would be like a 1, you know, for me, you know, just because I'm not a huge fan of the genre. But yeah, I definitely think it's watchable. It's fun. It's one that, like, if you turn this on for a Halloween, you know, like you would love watching this on Halloween,
yeah,
you know, or like in October. So yeah, I think that, like, if you're interested in it, it's worth a watch. If you don't love horror, then you're probably not interested in it at all.
But you still might like it.
You still might like it. Well, sweet.
Yeah. Cool. Well, catch you on the next one.